The Walking Dead, Season 11, Episode 14, I believe, titled The Rotten Core. Before we get into the episode, I once again want to apologize that I'm not in my traditional background. I'm not in the studio. That's because busy morning, stuff to do, got to get videos done on the fly, but figured do the video as opposed to not doing the video. I absolutely loved this episode. I think this episode pays off incredibly well as essentially a second part to a two-part episode, if you think of it that way, from last week's episode, Warlords. No, it's not titled Part 1, Part 2, but it still kind of feels that way. This episode is broken up into two arcs. One arc follows Daryl and Rosita as they search for money for Sebastian, and the second arc is continuing last week's episode with like Daryl and Maggie and the group fighting the Commonwealth people doing their thing. Let's talk about the Daryl Rosita arc first. I always, for years, thought it would be really cool if there was some sort of scene involving real money, just to see how much it doesn't mean to these people. Like, ever since season 4, I thought it would be cool if like Daryl was like looting a house and he came across a suitcase just filled with money, and he essentially just tosses the money aside and grabs like a little thing of like Altoids or like Tums or something, because that's what's important in the world these days. Ironically enough, we finally get a scene with money, but it's like the exact opposite, because money is actually important to these characters again. So this plot has Sebastian, which is Pamela Milton's son, tasking Daryl and Rosita to retrieve money for him so he can continue his lifestyle the way that he sees fit, because apparently his mother cut off his money line or whatever. When he first gives Daryl and Rosita this mission, he essentially threatens Judith and Coco and Rick Jr. or RJ. And there's a scene that I absolutely love that I've been waiting for ever since the Commonwealth arc even started. And that is Daryl takes his knife and he puts it right up against Sebastian's throat, and he basically lets us know and lets Sebastian know who Daryl really is, what he's really capable of, not to piss him off, what he's willing to do for his family and those that he loves. And I've just been waiting for Daryl to once again unleash this side of him. Ever since he's been in the Commonwealth, he's sort of been laying low. You know, he's been playing nice with Mercer. He's been playing nice with Sebastian. But as soon as his actual family is threatened, the Daryl that we know, that we've known for so long, comes out again. And I absolutely love that, and I have a strong feeling that's not the only time it's going to happen. And I have a feeling next time it happens, it's going to be a lot more serious and probably more deadly than that. This arc ends with them successfully getting the money and leaving, and they end up being rescued. Daryl and Rosita end up being rescued by Mercer and Carol. And here we get a great Mercer scene. It's essentially when they get out of that house, when they get to safety, when they get to the outskirts of the Commonwealth or somewhere around the Commonwealth that's safe. And Mercer overhears two Commonwealth soldiers saying that they've essentially sent 30 to 40 people to do this job before, and they all died. They didn't come back, and Mercer doesn't like this because he kills them both. And I think it's an incredibly great Mercer scene. I think that officially shows us where he stands in terms of his morals, in terms of his philosophy, in terms of, is he going to be an ally to our saviors when shit, to our survivors when shit hits the fan? Or is he loyal to the Commonwealth? And I believe it's going to be a little bit of both. I think Mercer sees the potential in the Commonwealth, but I feel like he absolutely sees the trouble within. And I think that Mercer's going to be one of those characters who knows where the middle ground is and knows what he has to do to make the best of both worlds collide. And I think this scene also proves to me that I think Mercer is one of the best new characters that we've gotten in a while. Pretty much every single scene Mercer is in pushes his character forward even more. Every single scene he's in, every single action he makes, every single line that he says, we learn more about him. He firmly places his feet in the world of The Walking Dead, and again, every single time that we see him, it's just pushing his arc and his character forward. And I can't imagine how good his character is going to be come the curtain falling of the show. Now let's talk about the second arc in this episode, the Maggie Negan arc with the Commonwealth and Aaron and Gabriel and all that. Absolutely loved this. I really, really liked it. So in this arc, a couple key takeaways I took from it is Negan's now married to a cool character so far. I forgot her name. What's her name? What is it?
Annie.
Like Annie so far. She seems like she's going to be incredibly likable. However, I do have a complaint about this arc, and I'll get into it at the end of this video, because there's another arc that's sort of doing the same thing that I don't like, and again, I'll talk about that at the end. Another key takeaway from this arc is the Negan Herschel scene. I have a feeling this is the scene that everyone's going to talk about. It's a scene that was the elephant in the room. Herschel is now a character in The Walking Dead. And obviously Negan's introduction, the very first scene we see Negan, he brutally murders Herschel's father, Maggie's husband. And we knew it was just going to be a matter of time before Negan had to answer for this. I still don't think he's fully answered from it. They keep teasing it. He keeps having these run-ins with Maggie. He now has this run-in with Herschel, but it's still not done. And Negan essentially confesses to Herschel. He says, yes, I'm the one who killed your father. Yes, I know you want to kill me. All that sort of thing. And he even says to Herschel at the end, relax for a few years. If in a few years you still want to kill me, come find me. We'll solve all this. And I thought the scene was done well. I don't think it necessarily had the emotional impact that it could have in a perfect world, but I think it got the point across. However, I am a little disappointed because I feel like this scene was premature. I feel like they could have shown us this scene either later this season, or better yet, in the newly announced Maggie-Negan spinoff. Can you imagine how impactful this scene would have been if they just waited? Like, imagine if, like, in the Negan-Maggie spinoff, if there is a storyline that has Maggie and Negan needing to team up against a greater enemy, and of course have Herschel thrown into the mix, have Herschel sort of view Negan as a father figure, much like Lydia has, much like even Judith has to an extent, and to a smaller extent. But imagine Herschel also having this arc, and then imagine then he finds out that Negan is the one who killed his father. I feel like this scene was premature. I feel like it could have had a greater payoff if they waited a while. But with that being said, I still like this scene. I still think it worked. And then the last takeaway that I had from this arc, a scene that I absolutely loved. The survivors essentially lure the Commonwealth up to the roof, and Aaron kills Toby, the ex-CIA guy. He kills him, he falls off a roof, breaks his back, and he gets devoured by the zombies of the people that he himself threw off the roof. Loved it. Brutal scene, brutal visuals, great directing, great emotional intensity. I loved it. But what I love about it the most is Aaron. Aaron's arc is sort of coming around 360. They're sort of paying off the arc that he's had ever since season 10. Ever since Aaron said he's not the good guy anymore. Didn't actually say that. That's Rick's line from season 2. But he essentially said the same thing. And it's seeing how Aaron has changed, because even in like season 10C, those bonus episodes we got, when him and Gabriel find the T-1000 Terminator holed up in some building, and Gabriel kills him, and Aaron looks kind of upset about it. He seems like he could have been redeemable. He seems like he really was trying to redeem him and maybe even bring him back to the community. Gabriel kills him. Aaron doesn't look too thrilled with that, and now we have Aaron in a different but somewhat similar situation, and Aaron's the one to pull the trigger, and he doesn't look regretful, he doesn't look remorseful at all. And even seeing how this goes back to an episode just earlier this season when they find the Whisperers camping out in Hilltop. Aaron's officially killing people. I like it. I don't think he's going to be happy with himself in the end, but for us as a viewer, it's a great character arc to see, and I'm happy and I'm satisfied. This episode shows us essentially what I always thought was going to be the case with the final season of The Walking Dead, or like the season that eventually would introduce our main group of survivors to a bigger group, like the biggest group with essentially a government intact, like a legit government and a money system and everything. And that's that. And I think the title of this episode pretty much solidifies that. The Rotten Core. The Rotten Core. The Commonwealth isn't bad. The Commonwealth, I think, has good intentions overall. I feel like the Commonwealth has the potential to be the best, greatest community in the world of The Walking Dead. But it has a rotten core. It has the Sebastians. It has the Tobys, the CIA guy. It has the whatever the fuck the main dude is. What the fuck's his name? Hornsby. It has Hornsby. It has the rotten core. And I feel like the solution to this isn't going to be defeating the Commonwealth. It's going to be defeating that rotten core within the Commonwealth and essentially taking it over for themselves and being the actual government type figures that are needed to make this world good. Very last thing that I want to talk about is we finally learn who actually did steal the Commonwealth's guns, and that is Leah. Leah, you all know who Leah is. It's a character that I don't love, but I don't hate. I'm not mad that she's in the show, but this final season seems to be doing a thing that's very common. They're doing it with Leah now, and it goes back to what I was mentioning about Negan and his arc with Annie, is that they have characters leave, and then they bring them back so quick that we don't have time to miss them. Therefore, the emotional impact of when they come back doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel warranted. It doesn't feel earned. Like, can you imagine how impactful it would have been if Negan was gone for a longer period of time? And then when we finally see him, he's got a wife and stuff. That would have been really cool. And again with Leah, she's barely been gone, and now that we're seeing her again, it's like, cool, we just saw you, haven't had a chance to forget you, haven't had a chance to miss you yet. And again, it's not having the emotional payoff that I feel like the show wants, and that's sad. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the newest episode of The Walking Dead. Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe. I'm going to talk about every episode of The Walking Dead universe ever. Lots of other things too. I got a Squid Game series going on. Lots of other things. So make sure you subscribe, click the bell, and let me know what you thought of this newest episode of The Walking Dead in the comments. Let me know.
Now give me a 90s boy band pose. There's the cool boy.